Hi, welcome to the small shed. This Saturday we've got some repairs to do to the shed itself. See you in a minute. Now, one thing that's particularly pleased me about building this shed is that for the last, I think it probably is 6 years at least now, it's just quietly existed without any need for any maintenance or anything like that. We've got aluminium coated, powder coated windows. The outside paintwork was done with the, I think it's Cuprinol, I'm not sure, the garden shades. I gave it 2 coats, or maybe 3, I'm not sure. I think it was, not sure, 2 or 3 anyway. But they are still pretty much as they were put on originally. So as far as I'm concerned, there's never been any great problem within the shed at all. I have had one source of a minute leak, which is something I've sort of knew about and suspected might happen, which I've bodged up at the moment, and that is that there is a vent all the way along the top of the roof which goes up through the gap in the sloping sheets, which are insulated, and it then goes up to the roof capping over the ridge board. That is a thin plastic coated metal, and what happens is the warm air goes up through that gap, hits the top when it's cold, condenses and drips back down. So on 2 or 3 occasions I've come in and found a line of wet drips in the middle of the floor, just down the middle between the 2 ends, which have got the timber stack in and a store at the other end. So that's something which is not a fault other than in the way it's been constructed, and what I've done really now is to put some insulation up in that part so that I haven't got the ventilation I had before. So it's a bit of a 6 of one and a half and a dozen of the other. You either do without ventilation or you get the odd drip of water in every 6 months or so. So that's where we are with that. However, there was one fundamental design problem that I built into the shed, which is the result of what I think we are all guilty of, and that is mission creep. Whenever you're building anything, I designed the shed and I started to build it, and then, like all good projects, I decided I wanted to change it halfway through, and that little change has been the main cause of the problems that I have. And that change was brought about by the fact that I thought, I know what's going to happen as soon as this shed is finished. We're going to want to put the lawnmower away, we're going to want to put the garden tools away, and they're going to end up in here, or the garage. And I didn't want either, really, because it just takes up room, causes problems, and after all, the original shed had used to house the mower and all the other stuff. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll steal a little bit of the corner outside and just build a small extension on the side of the shed and put the lawnmower and the tools in there. So far so good. But because I had at that stage already cut all the roof panels, I couldn't do what would have been the most sensible thing to do and just bring one of the panels 400, 500 mil, about 2 foot over, and that would have just brought the rainwater down and across. That wouldn't have been a problem. But I'd cut the sheets, I'd got some spare. It was silly really, but you don't realise these things at the time, and so I used one of the offcuts and came in that way to make into the gutter itself that goes along the side of the shed, to make like a valley gutter. And I know from my construction and building surveying days, the minute you start talking about valley gutters, you're looking for trouble. And what's happened is exactly that. Because it's not been weatherproofed properly, the water is coming off the extension, I think, and it's missing the gutter, or it's going down the side of the gutter down into that little bit that I've built on the side, and it's causing chaos in there. We'll go and have a look at it in a minute. You can see the sort of damage that it's done. So I need to A, repair the damage inside, and then B, sort out the weathering on the roof itself. The damage is pretty straightforward, I think. It's down to exactly the shelf itself, which is destroyed, and there are some plywood coverings. Because I didn't clad that face with the cladding that I've got on the outside of the shed, it's just got the vapour barrier on it, which I think has done its job and kept the water out, but I put some ply over it to protect it from getting torn, and that also has got pretty much destroyed by the water. So let's go outside, have a look, see what sort of a mess it is, and decide what steps we're going to take, how much of it we're going to replace and all that sort of thing, and then we can go up on the roof and have a look and see what we need to do up there to keep the water out of the shed in future. So as I say, the actual paintwork itself has stood up remarkably well for 6 years. It could do with a coat here and there where the keys and the fingernails have had a go at it, but it's keeping the weather out and it's not deteriorated. However, therein lies the problem. As you can see, that has taken the plywood, completely destroyed it. We've had the slugs in. These are the panels of plywood, some of which might be rotten. We'll clean them up and have a look. That's the vapour barrier, and that seems to have done well at keeping the moisture out of the shed itself. But obviously these are just wrecked. That was put there as a protection to stop things tearing it, and have worked in that respect. I think the floors may be okay. We'll have a look when we get down there, although given the amount of water that's gone down, it's probably not. So I think the first thing to do will be to get all of this stuff out, strip it back, give it a wipe over, and take out all the rotten bits, and we can start and put it back together again. And then up on top, that's where the problem is. And I think, yeah, I can see what I've done. See, I put in a piece of plastic to try and take the water off from here, but that is now just dumping it straight over the back of the gutter. But it's not doing its job. I think what I'll probably do is take these screws out and take this panel off altogether and see if we can't get to the bottom of it. So I think it's going to be fairly easy to resolve this one, because there's a huge overhang of the flashing at the front. So what I'm thinking is, if I recut this here, I can actually move the whole panel back quite a long way like that, and then it will drip straight down into the gutter. And looking at it, it may even be easier than that, because that's the part that overhangs the gutter. That's the part that was underneath the flashing. That is much deeper than that one. So I'm thinking I can just turn the whole thing round 180 degrees. And we should be in with a pretty good chance it'll work. So that's stage one. We've identified the problem and hopefully removed it. Got a much better overhang there now on the gutter. And hopefully all of the screw holes will be in correspondingly similar places. Right, I think that's removed the source of the problem. Let's remove the actual damage. So I'm pretty pleased with that. There's no sign of any rot in the structure itself. The floor has gone, which I had hoped it hadn't, but it has. But even the base plate is good. And so I need a new floor. I'm going to let this dry out for a day or two. And I think I'm going to have to use the multi-tool to take these pieces out, because they go behind the structure. Because on the other side they've got the cladding for the shed itself. So I think I'm going to multi-tool down there, try not to damage the membrane behind. But that has also worked well. You can see it doing its job, keeps the moisture out. So we've got the main structure sorted out. Just putting a little bit of plywood on the back to stop the vapor barrier getting damaged. The membrane, it's not really a problem, but it'll just stop it from getting ripped by putting tools in and out. And then all we need to do is pop a bottom in with a bit of old scrap ply. I haven't got anything particularly substantial at the moment, but a couple of bits of 12mm or 9mm will serve us at the moment. I've got the measurements. I'll keep my eye out for a bit of scrap ply, and we can replace that at any time. And then just put the tools back in and get it looking something like a working shed. Right, so that's sorted the problem. We've got all the stuff back in the shed, in the extension bit. Hopefully it's now going to remain dry. We'll see when we get the first thunderstorm whether it's worked or not, but if not, at least it's tidy. I can get stuff in and out to get at it. I understand where the problem is and or was, so hopefully we've solved the problem. Hope the video was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next time. We'll be doing something different in the shed. See you then. Bye.